Well, hello there, and welcome to our brand new show. What are we called?
We're called the Horror.
Huns. I am Kieran, and this is Grace, and we are here bringing you cocktails and crime.
Cheers, honey.
Cheers, hun. What you drinking?
So today I'm just having a bit of the traditional prosecco.
Oh God, I love the bubbles. It goes down well. I've got my pink gin, and I've also got my pink lemonade, and it is nice and chilled, ready to despunk some crime. What are we talking about today? This is our first episode.
Yeah, our first episode. So we're going to start with a big one, just as it's come out on Netflix. It's called The Crime Scene, The Vanishing at Cecil House.
Yes, and this is a big one because it's literally, like you said, it's just come out this week. So everyone's talking about it. I think it's like, in the top chart for Netflix. So I think this is a great way to begin. When did you first hear about this story?
So I remember you mentioned it to me a few weeks ago when you were saying how you'd seen a kind of clip of this woman in the elevator, and it rang such a bell. And it's like back in 2013, it had this massive cult following, and apparently this ghost stories about this woman in the elevator, murder of a woman in the elevator. And then I watched this documentary, and it's just completely spun my head because it's kind of given the facts that we needed, I think.
I know it's very strange because I heard about this story a long time ago, and all I knew, I didn't know anything about the hotel. So all I knew was there was a video about a girl who got in an elevator, was acting strange, and then she was found dead. So to me, that was all I knew. And it was only a few weeks ago that I saw that there was a documentary that popped up on the Discovery Channel, and it was a Ghost Adventures one, and it was them investigating they had the whole hotel to themselves, no one else, which is quite weird now when you think about it, because now that we've watched this documentary, we know that this wasn't just a hotel, it was actual living accommodation for people. So I'm not sure how these Ghost Adventurers managed to do it, but they did. And they had the whole thing to themselves to go and investigate. But I didn't realize how much stuff actually went on in that hotel. This to me was the craziest thing, from the murderers to the suicides. It was just like mental.
It's so much history. So if we start with the Cecil Hotel, it got built in 1920. It was this beautiful, huge, glamorous Hollywood hotel. And then when the recession hit, suddenly it became a cesspit for the seedy, disgusting, creepy people. You'd bring your prostitute there, you'd bring your cocaine there, have a little snort on the end of the bed. Do you know what I mean? Anything goes. And now you've got this hotel that's in the downtown part of LA.
Skid Row.
Literally, it was on Skid Row, and I thought, I'm not being funny. The first change I'd make if I was the government is call it, something else. But all I thought of was skid marks.
Oh, no.
And that's skid marks.
Exactly
if you
what I thought.
Want to identify, why call it Skid Row? They've got to turn it, even Sid Row. Get rid of the K.
Sid Row, exactly. Get Sid Owen down. He'll open it for them from EastEnders.
With the ribbon cutters, just get down there.
It's so true. Why would you call something Skid Row? It's basically saying this is the dirt of all dirt, basically. And when you're in LA, when you think of LA, you think of glamour, Hollywood, and then you hear something about Skid Row. Like, I'm sorry, if someone books me into a hotel and I was like, okay, whereabouts in Hollywood is it? And they go, oh, it's on something called Skid Row. Excuse me? You can skid off.
Exactly. And I think that's a huge part of the deception of the whole hotel, is that actually they realised that, they had a lot of homeless people renting in there cheap, and lots of permanent tenants of people that had, different social issues.
Yeah.
So what they decided to do was revamp the hotel under a new name as a youth hostage, new carpets, new flooring, but they didn't change the hotel. So poor young kids going travelling, going up to this place, not even knowing it's called Cecil Hotel.
Exactly.
This murderous place, and they have no idea. It's disgusting.
Yeah, well, when some of the stories I heard from this, not this documentary, well, actually they did touch on it. So the main thing was that obviously the Night Stalker would come back dripping in blood and come and then get take all his clothes off and just walk up the stairs. It's like, is no one questioning the fact that some man is with his wonky teeth is coming up the stairs dripping in blood, and no one, that just sums up the whole area, that someone is able to do that, walk up the stairs naked with their clothes dripping in blood, and to go to his room. And they also said that like there was this pigeon woman who, she was very well known as the pigeon lady or whatever it is, not to be confused with the Home Alone one, but she was LA's finest pigeon lady. And yeah, she went up with a guy, and the guy brutally murdered her. Like, he raped and murdered her, and it was like a really vicious attack. And then it was just also the amount of suicide. That they told one story about a woman who, she went into labor, so when she gave birth on her own, she got the baby and just chucked it out the window. Like, how horrific is that?
Yeah.
And then the woman who committed suicide, but when she jumped out, she landed on someone and killed him as well.
Yeah, it's just riddled, absolutely riddled in death. I think there was over 80 deaths.
Yeah.
Not all of them for murders. I mean, some natural causes or ODs or, you know, whatever.
But still, if you think about souls and life and whatever, the amount of souls that have died in that place, and if you believe in spirits and ghosts, that place is heaving then, because what else?
Negative energy. And even when we saw the footage of the inside, it looked like The Shining in there.
So true. You know what? When you say that now, it's literally, The Shining is exactly what it looks like. So bizarre. I mean, the hallway is beautiful, but when you start going up those stairs and looking at all the hotel rooms, it's like, whoa.
But then, red sticky carpet.
Oh my God.
What fluids are in there?
I mean, you're going to find more than a couple of different fluids in your cups, so I would not. I'm sorry. And there was that couple in this Netflix documentary, and she looked, and they went and stayed in there, and I was like, oh my God, you're brave to stay in there.
Have they never heard of, you know, TripAdvisor, looking at the reviews? I don't think so. And I think it's probably time for us to probably give a bit more information as to what actually happened.
So,
21-year-old student, she's from Canada.
Yeah. Wanted to make her mark, travel, be independent, just do things. Comes to LA, stays at the Cecil Hotel, and then doesn't check in with her family, which she was doing each night, and then just vanishes, and nobody knows exactly where the hell she went. And then it was only when police started investigating, they come across this footage of her, and they were like, this is her. And the footage is just bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, you see her in the elevator, and she presses all of the buttons, but the door doesn't close. So she kind of shimmies out and looks left and right, and then she jumps back, and it's almost like she's seen something. Yeah. And then she puts her back against the wall to hide, and you're like, is there a ghost? Is there someone out there pushing the button, stopping the door? What's happening? Well, I mean, what did you think when you first saw it? What did you think was happening?
I literally thought she was being followed or chased. But then when you saw her doing that thing with her hands, when she was talking to someone, like, her hand movements looked very weird, but it was more the fact that, like, it looked like she was kneeling, not kneeling, but like looking down. So it kind of gave me the emphasis, like, is she talking to a kid or someone? Because just the way she was like going like that was very much like someone quite shorter. Maybe it was the twins from The Shining that she was talking to.
On the bikes.
Exactly. But it was just like, it was freaky. And then when her body is found on top of the water tank, and it took for people, like the police investigated up there, couldn't find her at all. People started complaining that the water tasted, I'm sorry, if I found out the water was coming out black and tasted funny, and then I found out that there was a body up there, I am suing the gods out of you.
But what surprised me, and this was the biggest shock, I think, in the whole documentary, was these crazy people in the hotel, they saw the water was brown, but they claimed they still brushed their teeth in it and had showers. If I saw brown water coming out of a tap, do you think I'd be sticking my toothbrush under there?
No. It's disgusting. And they continue to like wash stuff. It's like, No, and even if you go into a different floor and it's like, honey, it's time to check out of here. I deserve something better. You can afford 5 star now for me because I've paid my dues with this place. But
Yeah.
it was more the fact that then her body was found with the lid on, apparently. So when I first heard of this story, I was told or saw, from what I was informed, found floating, no clothes on, and the lid was shut. And the way so to you, you'd think, first of all, you've seen her acting like this in the lift. The lift stayed open the whole time. It closes as soon as she's gone. And then her body is found in a closed tank. How the hell would she have got onto the roof without setting any alarms, got up to the tank herself, opened the lid, jumped down, and then able to like jump up to pull the lid back over? It just didn't make sense. So that's why everything I've seen has always pushed towards something more supernatural or a killer. And we all know
Yeah.
killers lurk, especially on Skid Row, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, the reason we went mad with these urban legends is the LAPD put the footage on their website, and then the internet trolls and
Yeah.
the internet sleuths, or the sleuths, I don't know what they were meant to be, sloths, internet sloths,
Yeah.
they went wild making these conspiracy theories, investigating themselves. Like, they thought they were the police. They were doing all these crazy things, making Facebook groups, and everyone's imagination ran wild.
And you can't even how is that even a same thing? You know, as soon as you put something like this up there, everyone is gonna go wild. So
Yeah.
it's weird because the documentary paints this in a light of this was all her and a suicide. It was a mental breakdown. Whereas the documentary I watched on Discovery was very much, this is paranormal, this is ghosts. And it's quite hard. Like, I'm quite glad I've watched this documentary now, because I'll be honest, I struggled to sleep after watching that documentary late of an evening. Never watch these crazy things before going to bed, especially when to do with paranormal, because it stays on your mind. And all I kept thinking was, someone is watching me. And it was because of this damn documentary I watched on Discovery. Thanks, Discovery. The ghost one tapped into more than just her. It tapped into all the deaths that have gone on there. And they actually locked the hotel down, went around with a camera, and they have, because obviously now things have moved on from the days of Most Haunted over here with Derek Acora and Yvette Fielding. They've got all this high-tech technology now in 2021 where because this was when this documentary was done, it was either done at the end of 2020 or in 2021, because they all had their face masks on walking around, and they had this device where they were able to look for a being, kind of like the outline of a body basically, but of ghosts basically, how they look for ghosts and stuff. They could see
ectoplasm and energy.
Yeah, all of that, the energy basically. And it basically does an outline, like a stick man, to say they went into that elevator. And I don't know if you know this, but people say that she played some sort of ritualistic elevator game. There's actually a summoning spell that you can play in an elevator by pushing a certain number of buttons in a certain sequence, and it's supposed to summon some sort, like Bloody Mary, doing that, for an elevator kind of thing. So that's what people were saying she did. Anyway, they went in, pushed all the buttons, did that, and then all of a sudden this outline appeared inside the elevator, but right in the corner, and it was just like, oh. But then as they were looking around, they went into the Night Stalker's room that he stayed in, and when the guy was talking, all of a sudden, the guy who was communicating was like, oh, he says hi to you. All of this, he's saying you're his favorite, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden this scratch just started appearing on the guy's neck, going down. And loads of people just started saying they were feeling angry out of nowhere. They were getting this energy of I want to smash something. And so they had to leave. But then when they went up onto the roof, they were saying that it was just full of this energy, evil energy. And they went into the room where that woman, the pigeon woman, was murdered as well, into her room. And they felt some sort of connection. They left this device to try and hear a voice, and a voice actually came through on it, and it actually said, there was 2 voices. They did one in the corridor, and it actually said Elisa. It said that, and then another one said something about, it was basically saying all this stuff, and it was just oh my god. So I know you got to take this stuff with a pinch of salt, because for me, I can't personally believe this until I experience it. I feel like you can't fully 100% believe in this stuff until it happens to you and you see something. So like if you're just sat here and then all of a sudden like my gin just starts going like this and then floats in my mouth like, oh.
Well, that'd be quite a handy pot guy. Someone that does your cleaning, do your dishes.
Exactly. But you know what I mean? It's weird to think that like you can't fully believe in something until you actually see something. So I could watch all of this, but then I'm like, this could be a guy pretending he's speaking to someone. This could be someone who's like they've done that scratch in post edit. You know what I mean? It's difficult.
But then in the same way, it's like I don't necessarily believe in that stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't not believe in it because
Yes.
I don't want to put that into the universe and the spirits say, well, if you don't believe in us, we're going to get you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see this poor girl on a lift doing things with her hands and going a bit, you know, she's confused and scared. When someone tells you it's a ghost, you think, well, maybe it is a ghost.
Yes, exactly.
And that's when I do think there's a problem with, not to throw Discovery, you know, in the bin, but did you take advantage of a situation there of like someone that was really like ill and had like, you know, had a really bad experience, and you're saying it was ghosts? It wasn't ghosts, was it?
That's the thing. So the flip side, which this documentary, because when you went in to start watching this, what did you think it was going to kind of portray?
I thought she was murdered, but they just couldn't find the killer. That's what my gut was. That.
And do you still think that?
No, I feel like now, well, I'll probably go into a bit more detail. I suppose the police opened up and said that when they did her toxicology report, they found no evidence of drugs because they thought maybe she's on the old LSD and that's why she's going crazy. And then they say that she actually had bipolar and that they could see that she'd stopped taking her bipolar drug. She took 5 drugs a day and that was really low in her system. And then they spoke to the family and the family said that, you know, she'd had episodes like this where she did similar things on the regs
and would go hide.
And that was her coping mechanism, hiding. And the police came to this kind of conclusion. She might have, you know, she thought she saw something that night and in fear climbed to the roof and hid in the water tank. I mean, obviously we would know not to do that, but when you're having, you know, these episodes and you're scared.
Yeah. Like if you feel like if you think someone is after you, then where do you hide? And you go to a place where you think, oh, I'll be safe in there, not realizing. I mean, it's weird because why are so many people informed that like that hatch to the water tank was closed, but then apparently the cleaner turned around and said, or the facilities guy, he turned around and said, no, the hatch was open in the end.
Do you know what? I just think it's a very clear case, and I think this happened loads. So you have these people that were obviously YouTubers and Facebook enthusiasts, and they would jump into all these conclusions based on what police were saying on TV. But it's like, police only ever give away 25% of the investigation because otherwise it, you know, puts the case at risk. And they're all saying the lid was on, but we know that this man opened it and closed it, you know, and he left it closed. So the police found it closed because he closed it. And they just assumed that, you know, it was because she'd closed it.
Yeah.
And then when the police just said, you know, that's not what happened, they were like, oh no, there isn't a ghost, there isn't a murderer, she just killed herself.
Well, it would have been very hard. Like when they showed the actual how someone would be able to get up there with her body over those kind of like 2 little beams, climb up the ladder, dump, like, no, that's too much. But I mean, she must have been very spooked out to have to like climb up. Like, I'm not sure about you, but my vertigo would have gone into overdrive. Like just being that, like, so she must have climbed out the window and gone up the fire escape and then climbed up that crazy small ladder with like no support or anything.
And you don't know, there might have been all sorts of sounds, like all sorts of atmosphere. You don't know what's going on. And she's just, I dread to imagine what she was feeling at that point.
It's sad, isn't it? It's very sad. But I can't believe that like this actual event like knocked on to like the craziness that was everything that came on. Like that poor guy who stayed there, he was into death metal and making scary videos of himself, and he was called the killer. He wasn't even there at the same time.
This is what I mean.
This
The
is
internet
nuts.
sleuths were just going wild.
Like if they
Absolutely
found out where
wild.
he lived, you know for a fact they would have turned up with their pitchforks after him.
Yeah, yeah, and
I mean,
he
he
was
didn't do
getting
himself any
death
favors
threats.
when he went on to say he didn't do it, but he had that scary mask on his face, and then this
Yeah,
voice. That was a bit like, I mean, I guess he just wasn't. I mean, it's like everyone knows what you look like now, love. Like you don't need
yeah,
to cover it like that. But the fact that he had to go to that length, even though he didn't stay there, but I guess people were just like, oh my God, he stayed there. Look, he's got a music video where he's talking about death, trying to kill someone. Look, there's a video about water. It must be him.
yeah. And then the fact it didn't help when the lyrics were something like, "You will die in ice cold water," and it was like,
And that's how it is.
that's how the poor girl did die. But you know, that's the risk that comes of having this kind of emo murder persona, talking about killing people in music videos. But yeah, that said, he didn't deserve it. He that's the last thing he probably expected making his YouTube videos.
I know, and then his poor accounts got taken down.
Yeah, he got blocked and deleted, and that was
He
his
must have got
followers
his,
gone.
his views and likes must have skyrocketed after this whole thing. And then, I mean, I don't know if he's glad they got taken down so we can start afresh, knowing that like no one thinks he's the killer,
Yeah,
or if it's just like, yeah. So you think she just had the mental breakdown from being bipolar? That's what I think now as well. I mean, I was quite happy that it's kind of stirred away from the supernatural, but
yeah.
it's very sad. But and you just feel like the family just needed some closure, and if they got closure from that, I mean, do you think the hotel should answer for all of this?
I do, mainly because, and it's not actually because of the situation with the roof, but I felt that it was worse that they portrayed the hotel as being a hotel that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're someone that's mentally ill, you're 21, you want to go to a nice chilled out, hostel, and you're in the elevator with, drug addicts, murderers, rapists, and you're 21, how are you going to cope with that mentally?
Yeah,
And she was doing things like their notes and stuff. No one said, are you okay?
I mean, those girls, I wonder how those girls felt, the ones that they had to get her, they complained about her. I wonder how they felt after all of this. Because basically, them sending her away was what kind of, basically, I would say probably sent her to her grave, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to think they probably were scared if she was, saying you've got a secret password to come in the room and leaving them death throat notes on their bunk beds and stuff, and it's scary. But I just think the hotel manager, the whole way through, she kept going, "It's a lovely hotel, don't blame the hotel." Well, how comes you had people walking up, bloody Night Stalker walking up the stairs of his bloody boxers after chopping off people's heads and raping them? What are you on, woman?
And
That's
people
what
walk up with the syringes still in their arm, like,
yeah. Get real, woman. Like, she was dead, and she's like, me, I'm a businesswoman. Like, thinking, no, you're not, because you just made things worse and worse and worse. You never made it any better.
Yeah. She kind of just like buried her head. But why do you think the alarms never went out? Do you think the alarm to the roof did go off and someone just hit ignore?
Yeah, she was like on the phone. Please hold, and then just switched it off.
I think that as well. But what's very weird is that where was everyone else? You kind of think that when you come out of the hotel room and when you stay in a hotel, how many people do you usually bump into on your floor and stuff, like going into the hotels? Not one person saw or heard anything. That's a bit peculiar, I think, as well.
Yeah.
It's just strange how, like, I mean, I've had this in personal experience. When I went to New York, I stayed in a hotel which, from the outside, it was on opposite Madison Square Garden, looked beautiful. You go into the main lobby, massive, gorgeous, beautiful. And then we asked, like, they said, "Oh, you've been upgraded," but obviously we were two singles, so we were like, "We need single beds." And they were like, "Oh, let me just see if we could find." "Oh, yeah, we do have a spare room." I'm not lying. As soon as you got into that lift and went up, it felt like you just stepped into like the grottiest, dirtiest hallway. And the room was disgusting. Like, I'm pretty sure Night Stalker probably stayed in that room as well, but we were just like, well, we're hardly gonna be here. But you kind of do get into those situations, and then to top it all off, a baby was found dead on our last day, on our last night. Some girls were caught and were walking through the hallway of our hotel, like down in the lobby, and one of the workers just looked and was like, "Are you okay?" And they were literally just, these two girls were just walking around with a dead baby. And it's just like, oh my God. Like, so when we woke up that next morning and we saw crime scene tape everywhere, we were just like, what? And I didn't sleep that night, so my subconscious knew something was up. My sixth sense kicked in. It was like, you need to get out.
How did the water taste?
Oh my God, you know what? I stuck with bottled water. I did not use any sort of water, only for showering.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Who drinks hotel tap water?
No, it's like basically the hotel tap water is just in the bathroom. I mean, I used it for cleaning my teeth, I think, or did I might have used actual bottled water to put into those kind of nights.
Terrifying.
But
yeah, I don't get many hotels like that in the UK. You got your Premier Inn, you got your Abyss.
You can just see how, like, imagine you work in a hotel and it's just death after death after death happening. And now it's like, I mean, surely they must be raking in the money just for being a tourist hotspot.
Yeah, I mean, all those people, that's what shocked me. All these people that were on the Facebook group following the death of this girl were booking their flights and going to the hotel and doing their own investigation.
I know.
What are you doing? Do you not have a job?
I know, getting up onto that roof as well.
Yeah.
So if I was to say to you, I've got us a ticket each to LA, would we go in and we're allowed to film overnight? Would you do it?
No. No, just more because of the sticky carpets that were described. That kind of the sticky carpets. I don't think so. No,
like,
it's not.
Just like,
the bed sheets are horrible.
Yeah, they thought a little fresh bit of paint was going to cover up the murders.
But then the hot on the press is the hotel's been bought and they're building a rooftop bar with a swimming pool on the roof. Would you be? I mean, it's a bit ironic, isn't it, having a swimming pool where someone was, in the water for 14 days drowned. I mean, I wouldn't go swimming up there. That's going to be a swimming pool with a poltergeist in it right now. I can tell you that much. People be sucked into whirlpools and all sorts.
Or your bikini's going to come flying off.
Woo!
I mean, but they're obviously going to change the name of the hotel, so it will not be called Hotel Cecil anymore, will it? Or are they going to keep it like that? But then, like, and then they're going to turn others into apartments, low budget apartments. Would you feel comfortable staying in a place like that, knowing that I mean, do you have to tell people that someone was murdered in your flat before they buy it or go and live there?
I have no idea if it's
That's all I would do. No, in my life, if I was to do that, I'd wake up in the middle of the night hearing pigeon feathers flying all about from the ghost of the pigeon woman.
I was going to say earlier, actually, when you said that they were hearing voices of ghosts, I thought, did they hear her say, "Feed the birds, tuppence a bag"? Tuppence.
Well, do you know what's funnier? Is that when I went back onto this, because I'm weird, we all know I'm weird, so I like watching things about ghosts and murderers and sinking cruise ships. Those are like my go-to things. So Discovery had it all. I was watching the sinking of the Estonia. I was watching this podcast. I was watching the murder of Jean-Benet Ramsey. And then as I was flicking to watch something else, it came up that there's another ghost story about the Cecil Hotel. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to watch that. But maybe with the lights on and daylight out. It's just intriguing. I think there's always going to be a layer of mystery around this whole story and this whole hotel. And I don't think... it's just very weird that, like, imagine you go to party on the rooftop in the pool and you're looking at those water tanks and I'm sorry, you'll know what happened in those water tanks. I mean, I don't know if anyone will. I mean, I would not be partying on a rooftop bar off Skid Row for one.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, even with, people commit suicide and stuff, it happens. Even with that, it's kind of like, but knowing that people were murdered there, raped, the Night Stalker, I mean, anywhere where the Night Stalker's been, I don't want to be on the same path as that
No,
guy.
apparently he was doing all his satanic rituals in there as well.
No.
So, and we all saw what he said when he came out. It was like, hail
Satan.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just mental that, like, would you imagine sleeping there and then hearing something like that pop off at night? Like, no.
Absolutely not.
I mean, I've run in cemeteries and I've got an injury from that. So that's the ghost telling me, do not run here.
Telling you to pull in your muscles. It doesn't want none of that.
Exactly, pulling everything.
But you know what really freaked me out? And this is when I was like, oh my God. When they just randomly brought up that film, Dark Waters or Black Waters.
Have you ever watched it, Dark Water?
Yeah, I have seen it, and it was scary, about the little girl she went to this murky hotel, block of flats, seeing water drip through the ceiling, and she was wearing a little red coat, the same as Elise was, and climbed up and went in the water tank and then drowned.
Nuts, but that was done in the early noughties.
Yeah.
Way before this.
Yeah.
And that was nuts because the similarities were just crazy. So that was originally an Asian movie, and they remade it with Jennifer Connelly, obviously, because that was back when they were doing all the US remakes of all these classic horror movies. So we had like Ring remade, we had The Grudge remade, we had One Missed Call remade, and we had Dark Water remade. So
yeah,
it's nuts. But what about the other things that they talked about? How like her name came up as like some tuberculosis thing, and then all of a sudden tuberculosis cases started coming up on Skid Row or something.
Yeah, you know what?
And it was her name that was the exact same name or something.
Yeah, so what happened was there was an outbreak of tuberculosis on Skid Row, and the name of the test that they gave out to people was called Lam Elise. And it also turned out that she went to a college which did the tuberculosis research. So they made up this massive conspiracy theory that she was infected with tuberculosis and sent to the hotel as a weapon of war. All nonsense, crazy shit. But what I didn't understand about that was, was the timings actually correct? Because they never actually said what year that happened, what year the test was named that. Yeah. They just were like brushing over it.
Yeah.
It all seemed a bit mad to me. I don't think that poor girl was a weapon of mass destruction. I think she was just a girl on a holly bob. She was on a holly bob trying to find herself.
Know what day of the week it was. Poor cow.
No, she was just enjoying herself.
So what was the coordinates that, like, if you put in the coordinates, it comes up to her grave where she's now buried?
Yeah, I think they thought she liked this bookshop, and they said she went into the bookshop twice, and then somehow the postcode of the bookshop was also the coordinates of her burial place. But
I mean, these are very, it is very strange.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if we took my postcode and put it into Google search, it might come back as, the birthplace, a brothel or something strange.
A brothel in Soho.
I wondered what that red light was outside.
And all those men knocking at the window.
So yeah, I think they were probably finding any story they could to make sense of her death. But really what happened was a lonely and, girl with troubles who was alone on holiday just got into a sticky situation, really.
Yeah, it's very sad.
No more to it.
So overall, out of 5, what would you give this documentary?
I'd give it a 4. The 1% is probably because it had me thinking that, there was some dark art at work until the end when they just said, actually, this and this happened, the end.
Yeah, exactly. It was like that, wasn't it? It's pretty much like, oh yeah, this is it, the end.
Yeah. And they knew that the whole time. They dragged it out over 4 episodes, you know.
I think I'd give it a 4 as well. I mean, it's worth a watch. It's a very good watch. So if you're interested in like crime and supernatural stuff, anything, I think it will tick quite a lot of your boxes. But overall, the only person who knows what happened is her.
Yeah, just
And
her.
that's it. And that, I think, concludes our story. But before we go, we need to discuss what we're going to be talking about next time. So, what finger do you want?
I love this finger.
The middle one. Oh, so the middle one is the Dyatlov incident.
Is this the one, not skiing, but it's
the one about the campers who went out in wherever into the snow and then their bodies were all found all over the place.
Okay, I'm ready for this.
That is what we're going to watch. So this is the next big thing. So we're going to have to dissect this incident and see what we come up with.
Awesome. I'm really excited. And thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed our
little breakdown of the incident.
Yeah.
And until next time, I've been Kieran and
Grace.
And we are
the Horror
Huns. Till later, guys. Bye.
Bye.